All right, are there any issues signing into Turning Point? Yeah, you can or no? There are issues or no? No issues? Because there's only 20 of you, so there might be some issues. Okay, thank you, Sophia. The time is 7:05. The September meeting of council is called to order. Anybody know how to move forward and slide? Okay, we will now proceed with the land acknowledgement. Western University is situated on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Attawandaron peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land and region of southwestern Ontario and the City of London. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. Western values the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island, known as North America. You might have to do the Western song for us. I'm serious. Okay, and we will now have the Western song led by one of our social science counselors, Counselor Kermack.
Oh my God, I'm stressed now. Hold on. And I'm not gonna have music, right? You just, it's gonna be awkward as hell. All right. Okay. Western U, college fair and square. Arts and meds are strong for you. Deny it if you dare. White and purple colors are worn by all who know just which college is the best. Come on, let us show you that this U is our U, and for her we'll strive to do our bit and fight with might and main. We will always adore her, our own alma mater, Western School of Fame. When Western U goes marching down the field, we know that our team will never ever yield. And though the other team has lots of pep, when they meet our team, they'll know they're out of step. And when the game goes down in history is just another Western victory. Then all the cheers go up for Western U, rah, rah, rah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We will now proceed with roll call. Please head over to Echo 360 for roll call or send me a message on Slack. Okay, we will now move on to the approval of the agenda. As the agenda stands now, we will have the bylaw 2 changes presentation given by the CRO, and then we have a 4 election item, which is the USA Fall General Assembly delegates, our usual motion to approve exec reports. We have an EA motion for the provincial budget submission recommendation, and 2 GNF motions, one for the bylaw 2 changes, which is the presentation is on, and one for the executive reporting policy approval. And then we have no additional agenda items. Are there any amendments to be made at this time? Councillor Useless.
I'm going to make an amendment to add a Senate report from the chair.
Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor, please say your last name into the mic. Solovsky?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Solovsky is our seconder. Are there questions on this agenda item to be added? Okay, if there are no questions, are there any points of debate to adding this agenda item? Okay, if there are none, I'm calling to question. Are there any objections to adding a Senate report to the agenda? Okay, the agenda is now amended to include the Senate report right after our first presentation. Are there additional amendments to be made? Yep, President Ajak.
Hello? Oh, it's so much better. Okay, I have quite a few. I would like to add a 4 action item to the agenda on the housing policy stance.
Okay, is there a seconder? Counselor Kermack, are there any questions on what is being added? Are there any points of debate to adding this motion? Okay, if there are none, I'll call to question. Are there any objections to adding this motion? This motion is added. President Ajak?
I'd like to add another 4 discussion item on the free to die and menstrual equity advocacy.
Okay, can I grab a seconder? Counselor Ding, are there any questions? Okay, are there any points of debate or points of debate? Okay, if there are none, I'm calling to question. Are there any objections to adding the free the dot presentation to a 4 discussion item, which will be happening at this meeting? Okay, if there are no objections, the 4 discussion item stands. Additional amendments?
I would like to add another 4 discussion item on mental health resources from the Mustang Athletic Council president.
Okay, seconder. Counselor Ho? Questions? Points of debate? Any objections? Okay, the additional 4 discussion item is added. And is there another amendment?
I have 3 more. Bear with me, guys. So sorry. I'd like to make an amendment to motion number 1, and I'd like to change it from 9 USA delegates to 8 USA delegate positions.
Okay, seconder. Counselor Uslis, questions? Points of debate? Okay, calling to question. Are there any objections to changing the first motion to have 8 USA delegates instead of the 9 that are currently in the agenda? Okay, if there are none, that stands. Next.
Okay, just some small clarifier, guys. I would like to make an amendment to motion number 4. I would like to strike the words bylaw 2 from the second be it resolved clause.
Okay, seconder. Counselor Goddess, questions? Okay, if there are no questions, points of debate. If there are no points of debate, calling a question, are there any objections to changing the bylaw 2 motion to remove the word bylaw 2 from the second be it resolved clause? Okay, if there are none, that stands. President Ajak?
Last one. Okay. I would like to make another amendment to motion 4. I would like to move for the last be it resolved clause to immediately after the first be it resolved clause in motion 4. Last one, I promise. Yeah. So I'd like to move the last be it resolved clause to immediately after the first be it resolved clause.
Okay, seconder. Counselor Kermack? Questions? Points of debate? Calling to question, are there any objections to moving the be it resolved clause's order? Okay, if there are none, that stands. Returning to approval of the agenda, are there any additional amendments to be made at this time? Okay, so if there are no additional amendments to be made, please head over to Echo 360 or by Slack DMs to approve the agenda. And this is approving the agenda as it's amended, which is being real live amended by our deputy. So if you want to see what it's looking like currently, you can go there. But for now, please vote on Echo 360. Okay. The agenda, the agenda stands as amended. We'll now move on to the approval of the minutes, which is the approval of the minutes for the last meeting. Are there any questions on this? Okay, if there are no questions, are there any points of debate or amendments to the last meeting's minutes? Okay, if there are none, please head over to Echo 360 to vote. Okay, the minutes stand. And we will now proceed with comments from the chair. I have none, so now we'll proceed with presentations, which starting with our CRO, please come down to the front.
Thank you. Right. Good to go here. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Braddock, and I'm the Chief Returning Officer for this year at the USC. Very nice to see all of you finally. I hear a lot about you, but I don't get to actually interact with you very much, at least at this point in the year. In January, you might not like me very much. I'm joking. In any event, the presentation today is dealing with some proposed amendments to the elections bylaw. So I'm going to give you some quick context. I don't have an actual PowerPoint. I find them a little bit distracting too, but I'm going to give you some quick context, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm primarily here to answer questions, but I'm also happy to go into as much detail as needed. As far as why we're proposing some amendment changes, I'll give you context that I was a VP finance at the Student Union in Windsor. So I worked with a lot of governance issues there, but when I took on this role here at the USC, one, it became apparent to me that there were certain issues with the governing documents relating to elections, but two, those were actually raised to me by the governance staff here, so Melissa and Nick. They felt that there were some issues that happened in the past that need to be resolved. So we went ahead and undertook a review of the process. A couple observations were that the drafting is very poor across the documents. I'll just give you one example. There's a principle when we read documents that if you use two different words, they mean two different things. But a lot of the time we're actually using different words for the same thing, or we're using, other sorts of constructions that just make it very difficult to interpret the document as likely intended. But the bigger structural issue is that different issues are located in the wrong document. So what I mean by that is the bylaw themselves are a bit heavy. Your bylaws are supposed to be a high level document that sets out principles, but actual minute details aren't generally going to be found in bylaws. So we find that that's a little bit restricting. And then there are obviously issues as far as actual processes and timelines and things that might have been added for a particular reason due to problems in the past, but now they've just become rather unworkable. So what you have before you is an updated bylaw. The motion, as I understand it, and I haven't had a chance to review the amended one, but I don't believe there was anything of substance that necessarily changed from last time I've seen it. The issue in front of you is twofold. One, we're recommending, and when I say me, and with the support of the governance staff as well, a change of jurisdiction from council to the board. I can talk a bit about that, but essentially, when we look at elections, it's probably one of the more riskier items as far as USC business. My understanding is it's on your risk register. Reputationally, for student associations, it's always going to be one of the higher risk items or higher risk activities that you undertake. So there's a real risk of reputational harm, and those things are better seen are better, in our view, better under the board. The second thing is the board is directly responsible for certain governance matters, and this, in our view, likely falls under or does fall under rather the board's jurisdiction, or ought to, in this bicameral nature. And the third thing is there's at the very least, a perception of conflict of interest with elections being under council. And even if it's not maybe conflict of interest per se, certain other concerns that relate with the way that elections interact with council. I've been given examples of previous years where councillors have tried to step into the election process and try to have things change that they didn't like as elections were going on. I've received certain examples of that, but also primarily my understanding is that the council is more involved politically than the board. And so you have that added risk of perception of conflict of interest from the membership, from, media, the public, all of which add to those risk elements. So that's the one piece. The second piece is actual changes to the governing documents themselves. So before you right now is bylaw number 2, an amended bylaw number 2. So that's something that we worked with the support staff to have changed. So it's a little bit lighter than the previous bylaw 2, but it sets out the principles that need to be there. Our plan, subject to your council being okay with this, as far as either moving the jurisdiction over to the board where we proceed, or in the alternative, at the very least, not having any objections to the overall review process, we'd go ahead and have a updated policy and procedure before you for approval. My understanding of the cycle is that will be late October, early November. So the bylaw itself is the high level document that we have in front of you now, so you have an idea of what our vision is. The actual policies and procedures will follow, but again, subject to approval. That's a big spiel. I'm not sure how familiar you might be with the process to know how much of that actually hit home, but I'm happy to take any questions if that's the usual process here, and I'm happy to speak in more detail as well.
Okay, thank you. And we will now proceed with our next presentation, which is from the Senate.
Moving out. I didn't want to tabulate.
Take your time.
Hey, everybody. My name is Emily, and I'm the chair of the Student Senators. I'm really happy to be here and kind of start off this new relationship that we're building with the Student Senators and the USC. So as an intro, kind of wanted to start off with, a lot of you know what the Student Senate does and the Senate itself, but I kind of wanted to break down something that's not so well known, which is our committees, especially for VP academics who are sitting on faculty councils. So there's micro-credential committees, there are things with academic policy, there's a nominating committee, all of these things. And one thing I want to work on is a list of all of our student senators who sit on these committees and work directly with our faculty and administration. So if you have any concerns with these areas within these committees, especially, like I said, VP academics and things like that, I can send that over and make sure for any inquiries you can reach out. For the WSS, or the Western Student Senators, we have 3 working groups that we're kind of going to be initiating this year. So the first is the rule with 24 hours and 3 exams, kind of working around that, especially with take-home exams when the lines get blurry. So if you have 2 exams in one day, then an essay to write that night, it can get kind of busy. So kind of looking at that, seeing what we can do to alleviate student stress with that kind of thing. And with policy, one thing I want to reiterate is that it's a very long process. So this is a new thing we're starting this year and hoping to work towards. Additionally, we're going to be working on the transition to Brightspace. So as most of you know, we're kind of leaving OWL and moving towards a new learning management system. So with that being said, we're going to create a manual to kind of explain what this change would bring and how students can kind of navigate that. And also maybe reaching out to professors and maybe giving them a lending hand as well for technology purposes. For our last working group, we're going to be doing a gender-based violence accommodation. So kind of working with Tracy Isaacs, who focuses on a task force with that, and working with students who are survivors of that and making sure that they're accommodated appropriately. As for chair updates, a big thing that I'm sure you've all heard about is the Brescia update integrating with Western. Found out about this about the same time as everybody else. We were called to an emergency meeting and kind of discussed what the purpose was behind this. My prerogative from as a student perspective is the residents. I think a really big thing is the integrity of the all girls and female women identifying people to come into this residence and have a safe space. I think that it needs to stay. One thing that I think is really important with this is if they do integrate with main campus, we can keep that Brescia spirit at least in one place with the softs, with the dons, with that community there. So I'm going to look into this more with Senate. I can also reach out to the board, but this is something to me, if this is going to happen, I think this is a great way to kind of go about it. And it gives that space and that integrity of that Brescia spirit, and it allows it to stay. Next thing was the TSN article that was released about the women's hockey team. It was really important to me at our last Senate meeting that I asked a question about resources. I'm very lucky to have a very close relationship with the Mustang Athlete Student Council president, who can give kind of more information on her role. But my biggest thing was, what are the resources? What are we doing for these students to make sure that, you know, not just the hockey team, but athletes across the board are being supported? Fowler Kennedy is a very popular name amongst athletes, but it's mostly known for more physical ailments and physical therapy and things like that. And that's not necessarily a resource that we can throw across to athletes. So kind of looking into that, integrating athletes more into governance. But other than that, that's kind of my spiel for Senate. Please reach out if you have any academic concerns, but I'll be in contact with a lot of the faculty presidents to just to kind of ensure, like I said before with those committees, if you have more questions about some more niche ideas with academics, like micro-credentials, academic policy, things along those lines, you can kind of reach out. But other than that, thanks for having me, and I'll see you at the next quarter.
Okay. Our next and final presentation will be given by the board chair. So Kathleen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathlena for long, Kat for short, and I am the chair of the USC board. You'll see me here probably once a month, just giving you updates on what the board is doing. So for those of you who don't know, the board is just responsible for like the financial and like risk health of the USC. So we're entering our second cycle of the board term. So our last board meeting was in August, and our upcoming meeting is the first week of October, so next week, Wednesday. And some things that the board has engaged on in the last couple of months is a review of the club's discrimination, harassment, and violence reporting procedures, and that happened through our HR committee. We also approved some changes made to the club's governance board terms of reference, as well as appointed a director to the CGB hiring panel. So it's a lot of policy review that goes on our end just to ensure that we're mitigating risk wherever we can and protecting the reputation and mission of the organization. So coming up at our next board meeting, whatever the results of the election bylaw 2 for action item will be presented at our next board meeting. As well, this is a really heavy policy review year for us. So in general, these updates are going to include all of the policies that have been reviewed. Melissa and the governance team have created a great outline for us to be reviewing policy to ensure that we are on track with any concerns or any risks that have been unaddressed, and every policy is addressed on a minimum 3-year cycle. So we're cycling through a ton of HR policy, and you will get those updates from me or from Sunday, who also sits on the board. And just as a last reminder, if you have any need to contact any of the directors or any of the committee chairs on the board, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email is kathlena.henricus@westernusc.ca, or you can contact Jacqueline, who works in HR at the USC, and she'll be happy to put you in contact with me. But I'm the main liaison between council and the board of directors. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We will now move on to our first for action item, which is the USA election. So what will happen is each of them will come up individually and give a 2-minute hard timed speech. Everyone will go into session, and following that, we will have a vote via Google Forms. So our first candidate Anna.
All right, good evening, counselors. My name is Anna Chauhan, and the next 2 minutes are going to be a small introduction on who I am and hopefully serve as a strong case for me becoming your USA delegate. But before you cast your vote, here are some things you should know about me. One, I'm incredibly proud to be a student at Western, and rightfully so. I believe we have one of the most passionate, diverse, capable, and enthusiastic student bodies in all the schools across Ontario. To represent this amazing group and bring their voice and vision to the provincial level would be a true honor. The second thing is that I'm an incredibly honest person. I believe in real talk and real actions, especially in a world where things tend to be about titles, clout, and labels. I strive to take the roles that I'm given very seriously. I show up even when things are hard, and it's how I dealt with bullies as a kid and how I deal with my problems as a grown-up too. I never fret from a challenge, and that's just who I am. And the third thing is that I have a real experience in an elected role. As someone who ran and held the position of student equity lead for my regional school board, I understand what it means and what it takes to fill a role of this caliber. I represented over 200,000 students and worked with superintendents, board trustees, and people far more mature and experienced than me, which allowed me to hone a decorum of speaking to people in positions of power and communicating my opinions with grace and tact. The fourth and final thing you should know about me is that I love talking and meeting new people, if you couldn't already tell. My friends have always said that I have this unique ability to bring people together and spark connections, and I try to bring that synergy with me wherever I go. To end off, being an USA delegate gives me the honor of serving my school and is an exciting new chapter that would allow me to take my advocacy to places where meaningful change can happen. Thank you once again for your time, counselors. And my name's Anna Chauhan, and I hope I can count on your vote.
Okay, our next candidate will be Cecilia. Okay, our next candidate is going to be Councillor Kermack.
Why not? Okay. Good afternoon, Council. I hope you had an excellent week and a calm start to classes. Welcome to the first in-person meeting of Council. I'm so excited to work with you this year as we collectively work to improve the student experience here at Western. I'm coming to you today to seek your support in electing me as an USA delegate for this semester's General Assembly. USA is an organization I'm very familiar with and one which I am proud to have represented at the USC in the past. Looking forward to this particular General Assembly, USA is reviewing 3 important policy papers. These are student health and wellness, housing transit, and community development, and rural and northern students. Though for the most part, I'm proud of what the USC and Western are able to offer through its health and wellness insurance and services. It saddens me that there isn't a high enough standard of quality throughout all universities in this province. This policy paper will solidify USA's modern stance on this issue, and it can advocate directly to the provincial government. Secondly, the housing, transit, and community development paper will uncertainly be a contentious one, as this policy paper covers housing and community development. It's critical that USA develops a modern stance on the issue and continues to be an of-topic discussion at all levels of government. The policy paper that I am most excited for, however, is that of rural and northern students. Though I'm not a rural or northern student myself, I am the son of a former northern student. My mom was from Sudbury and she attended McMaster University in the 90s. I've always been interested in the North. Fun fact about myself, I went through like a Yukon phase in high school where I like wanted to learn everything about Yukon territory and like political and geographic stuff there. So I can tell you all about that territory for some reason. Today, I'm more interested in Northern Ontario, places like Kenora, Dryden, Thunder Bay, Sudbury, Cochrane, North Bay, and what goes on in that particular part of the province. And I'm beyond excited to talk about this subject if elected to go to Waterloo this October. Thanks, everyone.
Our next candidate will be Hamza.
Thank you, counselors and Madam Speaker, for the introduction. I wanted to start off with thanking you all for the opportunity to come here and speak upon myself. My name is Hamza Kamisa. I'm a slightly overdressed second-year computer science student here. So far, I just want to kind of start off with a little bit about myself. Born and raised in Toronto from a single mother. And I kind of know about these difficulties of financial difficulties. USA as an organization is here to help financial needs, mental well-being, and multiple other situations. I've needed to start working from the age of 13 to support myself, put myself through university, and countless other opportunities to support my family. Coming from personal experiences and professional ones, where I will deep into more in depth in a second, I believe that I'm 100% eligible to run. And, I'll go a little bit into this. I'm so sorry for the little bit of a spread here. Professionally, I've worked for City Councilor Shelley Carroll. I've worked for policy papers where I've needed to kind of dive really deep into it, research about it, learn about past experiences and why it didn't run in the past, to develop and learn from past experiences and to develop the city of Toronto from the future. Needing to work on both financial need as well as housing crises. Most recently, we were talking about going into a financial need and financial necessities to be able to provide these for affordable housing. And I'm so sorry. I feel like I've kind of cut myself off there a couple too many times here. And working alongside the counselor and alongside my team, I have needed to make motions very similar to a council like this, provide that in-depth analysis to ensure that we can sway votes in our favor, and to make real changes and enact that. And that's what I think USA is at its core, being able to make its deep changes at its core values and lobbying the government to do so. To really advocate for students who require that extra helping hand is exactly what I've been looking for. And I feel like I would be the right person for the job. I'm, again, so sorry for the little bit of the sway here. There we go.
Our next candidate is Ben.
Good evening, counselors. In the brief moments we have together, I want to convey not just words, but with conviction, why I'm prepared to, and why I'm committed to representing Western's vibrant student body at the USA General Assembly. I stand before you fully aware of the privileges that come with being a white male in our society. I acknowledge the unearned advantages I've been afforded and recognize the many of the challenges my peers have faced and barriers that I have never encountered. But let me be clear, my privilege does not blind me. Instead, it fuels my commitment to learn and leverage my position to amplify the voices of the unheard, the marginalized, and every student who has ever felt overlooked. I've walked the halls of Western, not just as a student, but as an observer, a listener, and most importantly, as a peer. I've felt the pulse of our collective aspirations, and I've also witnessed the challenges that shadows over the bright future we are all working hard towards. In the policy papers on rural and northern students' welfare, student health and wellness, housing, transit, and community development, my insights are not theoretical, but experiential. I've seen the gaps, and I've also witnessed the immense potential that lies within our collective action. I'm committed to ensuring that my role at the General Assembly goes beyond just sharing my own perspectives. I'm here prepared to elevate everyone's voices, concerns, and aspirations. ensuring that the policies are crafted with a diverse set of needs in mind, fostering an environment where every student doesn't just survive, but thrives. In me, you have more than a representative, you have a partner, an advocate, and a fellow student ready to turn over collective challenges into stepping stones for remarkable achievements in all of our educational paths. I recognize my privilege and I am committed to learning, listening, and leveraging this position, not for self-promotion, but to facilitate a platform where every voice, concern, and aspiration is acknowledged and valued in the policymaking process. Thank you for your consideration. Together, let's make our voices echo in the halls of decision-making, ensuring a future where every student is a testament to the power of quality, equitable, and inclusive education. Thank you.
Our next candidate will be Siddharth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Siddharth. I see some familiar faces. I was Huron's counselor last year. That being said, I think I have a wealth of experience that I'm drawing on to, hoping to go back to USA. I went to USA last year as a delegate, and I think it was a very good experience. I learned a lot, and I'm relying on my experience as a counselor, but as well as just being in the city of London for the past 4 years, considering the more public nature of some of the topics that we'll be discussing. So my experience on council, I think allows me to read kind of like the situations that come up, and especially with situations that I don't have that much experience with, particularly with the Rule in Northern Students paper. I can't say that I have much of an insight into that, but the way I learn is through interaction. I've also been involved at Huron Student Council in another position, as well as the current VP Equity for the RC Humanities Students Council. And I have insight into housing, transit, and community development through these positions in a student-facing lens, but as well as just a public-facing lens as a performer in London art scene, as well as an intern for the London Dance Festival, and being volunteering with different organizations that deal with food insecurity, housing, transit, tenant rights, and that sort of thing. So thank you very much, and I hope to have your vote.
For our next candidate, we do have a video. Is it connected to the right output? Okay, we are going to move on to our next candidate in the meanwhile, but we will return. Our next candidate is Payal.
Short. Good evening, everyone. My name is Payal Mehta, and over the course of the next 2 minutes, I hope to convince you why I believe that I would be the best person to represent the student body at this year's USA General Assembly. In terms of experience, I've had the opportunity to serve on Science Student Council. I've been on several action committees for the Royal Canadian Air Cadets, and I've also held various executive positions on several clubs during my time here at Western. Overall, I believe that I possess many traits that would be invaluable as an USA delegate.
I have great time management, communication skills, empathy, but above all else, passion. I believe that passion is one of the most fundamental attributes that any delegate should possess in order to drive change, and I can guarantee that I have it by the boatload. One thing that I'm the most excited to speak about is the Housing, Transit, and Community Development Policy Paper. Currently, nationwide, there is a housing crisis, and I've seen firsthand the toll that a lack of access to safe and affordable housing can have on a person's ability to thrive, not just academically, but socially, mentally, and physically as well. I've personally had several friends who've had to transfer universities and move back home due to the rising cost of living, and primarily that's housing. And in the past, I volunteered with the region of Peel to work with those afflicted by housing insecurity. So this is an issue in particular that I find very near and dear to my heart. I believe that I have the experience, the passion, and the drive to make me an ideal candidate to excel in this position. I always believe in giving 150% to anything that I do. And of course, this is no different. And as an USA delegate, I want to advocate for my constituents and impact meaningful change. Regardless of the initiative or the policy paper, I will always strive for excellence and do my utmost to ensure that I use my role to make the lives of undergraduate students across the province better. Thank you.
We will now hear from Amit.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to thank the council for having me today and hopefully consider me as an USA delegate. I know I'm kind of severely underdressed for this, but live, love, laugh. A little bit about myself. My name is Ahmed Ramadan. I'm a first-year BMOS student here, and I previously resided in Hamilton, where I worked with the Honorable Philomena Tassi, Minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, and a member of Parliament. I also had worked closely with the Mayor of Hamilton about issues relating to the policy papers we'll be discussing at the USA general meeting. Some firsthand experience I've had with some of the policy papers here in London is I'm aware of the housing crisis, especially for students. For over half a year, I've been looking for a proper, suitable household for me and my brother, who's a second-year student here, and two of my friends. It took me close to half a year to find a house that would allow students like me to live in. And it really was a struggle because a lot of issues tenants like myself and with my age have is that landlords wouldn't accept them specifically for insurance. Insurance was a big problem, especially for younger people. And I just believe that if I were to represent the students here, it would make it easier. I would have a solution for the problems we have here. I'm also aware of the significant change in routine and lifestyle from high school to university, especially in a different city, with issues like living away from home, finding own transportation and work, and the issues of student assistance programs in the first semester. I'm currently, I don't have a car yet, which kind of is a struggle since I'm living off campus due to the struggles of, just not being able to afford living on residence and everything like that. But hopefully, with everything, I can be able to help out. Thank you.
And now Anisha.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Anisha Ramchandani. I'm a second-year student studying psychology and thanatology. Being an affiliate student, my aspiration to serve as an OSA delegate is driven by my deep-rooted commitment to actively engage with the Western community and effectively advocate the interest for all of us. But the main reason why I would be great representative is because I care about the undergrads. Students have it hard enough and they do not need additional pressures on them, especially in this day and time. I work as an off-campus advisor with the Western's off-campus housing team. I do believe that that opportunity has helped me learn a lot about housing, transit, and community development. I'm also an international student, which kind of forces me to learn a lot about Ontario housing, which is a great opportunity for me. Like, it helped me to learn more about the housing, transit, and community development. Being an advisor equates to helping fellow students when they have issues with their housing or in their neighborhood communities. I'm also very interested in how all the policies applied to the university affect our larger school population and student population. I'm a solution-oriented person, and I actively try to find a positive outlook and a way to solve my problems in my personal life, academic life, and on a wider community scale. Being an extrovert also is one of the reasons why I want to be an OUSA delegate, as this position will help me build partnerships in the post-secondary education realm and lobby for policies preferred by the student body. All my actions as an OUSA delegate will strive to improve the accessibility, affordability, accountability, and quality of undergraduate education in Ontario. Thank you so much.
And now we have C. Right there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Syed Rizvi, and I'm a third-year student majoring in political science and history. As an international student, my goal is to empower and advocate for the diverse community of students at Western. I believe in fostering a sense of belonging and inclusivity among all students, regardless of their backgrounds. I have personally experienced the power of education at Western, and I am committed to ensuring this opportunity is for everyone. Joining USA is more than a chance to engage in evidence-based policy advocacy. I think this is the avenue to bridge the existing gaps among various student groups in Ontario. My involvement with the political science think tank, the Leadership in Democracy Lab, has prepared me to contribute effectively to USA's policy publications. My tenure with during my tenure with the think tank, I actively engaged in research and report writing, which helped me hone my skills in writing and helped me in my analysis, making me a valuable asset to USA's, which will make me a valuable asset to USA's advocacy efforts. Working closely with professors and other researchers has given me valuable insights into policy analysis and development complexities. I have authored and co-authored reports that have played a critical role in the success of our education. This experience has instilled in me a firm belief in the importance of evidence-based policymaking. In conclusion, my journey as an international student has equipped me with a unique perspective on the challenges and opportunities that our diverse student body faces. I am dedicated to amplifying the voices of Western students and ensuring that their needs are addressed through our initiatives. In conclusion, we together can create a more inclusive and educational environment for all students, fostering a stronger sense of belonging and community. Go Mustangs. Thank you.
Next, we have Adam.
I would have put my much more beautiful LinkedIn headshot in if I knew everyone was going to see it. All right. Getting my timer up. All right. Starting. All right. Hi. So there's a couple things I want to talk about. One, I'll talk about the unique skills I can bring. And two, I'll tell you about the perspective I bring to why this is important. So first of all, in terms of whether or not I'll be able to do this effectively, my skill set lies in the fact that I've been doing university debate for the past 4 years. So I've put a lot of effort into things like how to convey complex topics concisely. I've helped to run organizations. I'm currently the equity officer for Central Canada, so that's about 20 different schools. I have a decent understanding of how to run an organization and how to convey myself. As for experience with these issues, like on a personal level, I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours researching student wellness because it is a personal interest of mine and something I think is important. In terms of things like transportation, again, I have some knowledge of that. All of these topics are covered in debate. You need to know sort of a bit of everything in life to be able to succeed in that. But even with something like rural students, I come from Alberta. My family faced very direct discrimination back in the day due to like being rural people. And I also know a lot of blue collar students in university who have noticed like a very strong class divide, which has been pretty psychologically damaging to them growing up. But why do I think this is important? So essentially, it's like the perspective I want to bring and add to this delegation is that I think the job of a university is essentially to raise students. Like, because you are usually separated from your parents when you come to university, there's a lot of things that students don't really know how to do because they're like still young that the university has to fill the gap for. And I think like seeing that there are things where students will struggle with like very basic things like, you know, eating healthy, like having good access to like their spirituality and like staying on track with things they care about. These are like things you can observe with most people around you at some point or another, and that currently the ball often gets dropped on. I want to help fix that because I think it's important. That's all.
Now we have Thomas.
Good evening, Council. My name is Thomas Vukovic. I'm a third-year history and ethics student, and I'm running to represent the USC as an USA delegate this year. Here are a few bullet points about me. I was a physics and chemistry student for a little over a year. Then I switched into history. I prefer that a lot more. It took 3 attempts and 2 years of sophing for me to get an uninterrupted due to COVID O week. So I'm glad that I finally got that this year. And over the past 2 years, I've never once deviated from the best order at the Spoke, an everything bagel with a BLT, a caffeinated beverage, and a chocolate chip cookie. But I'm not here to talk about spoke orders and softening. I'm here to talk about problems that affect students at this university, not just at this university, students all around the province. In my first year, I was struggling with the transition to university, which I think was a very common experience. And I attempted to book a mental health appointment with campus mental health services. I ended up having to go off campus to see a counselor and pay out of pocket because the wait time was a month and a half. And I really hope that by advocating for more funding to be allocated to these places by the provincial government, new students won't have to face the same sort of adversity that I did when I came here to a new environment for the first time. Another problem that's faced by a lot of off-campus students is housing. Rents are drastically increasing. Students province-wide are becoming unable to make ends meet, and there are price increases in other essentials like groceries and tuition and textbooks. I think that programs like the Canada Housing Benefit one-time rent top-up were really essential in helping students make ends meet and relieving a lot of financial insecurity. So I'd like to see more of that from the provincial government as well. Also, transit is extremely essential to students, and the consensus I think is clear. London transit sucks, but it doesn't have to. I'm from KW, and when the city built an LRT, my commute everywhere halved. There are a lot of engaging events, affordable housing opportunities in culturally rich areas in London, and they're just really not accessible to students because they're far away from the university. I really want to appeal to the provincial government to help cities open their downtown cores. Who wouldn't love to be able to go to the Western Fair on a weekend? I have a tremendous vision on how to support students, and if you think that any of my solutions are far-fetched, I'd just like to say that I believe you and I agree with you when I say that students have the power to change the world. Thank you.
You're gonna bear with me for a second here.
Good evening, USC Council. My name is Samir Malik, and I'm a fourth-year medical sciences student, having served as a member of the Ethnocultural Support Services and the Science Student Council. Today, I'd like to talk to you about why I am the right person to represent Western University at the OUSA General Assembly. The OUSA, to me, is an organization led by students to serve the best interests of students. I've seen it take aim at crucial issues faced by students across Ontario, such as mental health, and work effectively to aid such issues. It truly astounds me the work that has been done by the OUSA, and I have no doubt in my mind that all this stems from keeping the student in mind. That is the manner in which I would operate as an OUSA delegate, keeping the individual student at the forefront of my mind, aligning with the OUSA's mission to best represent their interests. Because let's face it, university can be tough, and we don't need transportation, facilities, well-being to pose additional challenges. During my time here at Western, I have served as the Finance and Operations Executive for the Ethnocultural Support Services, as well as a member of the Science Student Council Finance Committee. These experiences have given me three things. Firstly, I've honed my leadership skills, as representing the interests of a group of students is something I'm now familiar with. In addition to this, I've advanced my logistical sense to where I can gauge effectively which endeavors are feasible, as well as the investment of time and resources required to accomplish a goal. Finally, I've developed a persuasiveness that would serve as an asset for the General Assembly. If chosen as an OUSA delegate, I promise to operate with the same dedication and focus that has made the OUSA so effective thus far. I will keep the individual student at the heart of every decision, aligning with the OUSA's mission to best represent their interests. Thank you for your consideration.
Yep. 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 It will be on the ballot and I will make a point of it to thank you. His name was Samir. Okay, this is the motion at hand. Can I grab a seconder? Counselor Viakakos. Are there any questions on what is happening? Are there any points, Counselor Goddess? Okay. Okay, so what's gonna happen, unless there are points of debate or amendments to be made? Okay, so we're gonna send a Google Forms to Slack. Using that Google Forms, you're gonna vote. Before we do that, we're gonna approve via Echo 360 and Slack that whatever the result of the election is, it stands. So first things first, head over to Echo 360 or vote via Slack. Please note that it's 8 delegates, not 9, as we amended in the agenda. You can see in the agenda. Okay, you will please head over to Slack now, where in the general chat, you'll receive a Google Forms from Simon. Vote via there. If you don't have access to Slack, ask the person beside you to email it to you. Mhm. Yep. Yep. I'll put it up, and then also Simon's gonna put a link in the chat to that, Counselor Useless. Yep.
Yes.
You vote past 8. Okay. And then the top 8 are the ones that you don't have to. Yeah. Okay, while we tabulate the results, I'm gonna call a 10-minute recess. If there are no objections, return to your seats at 8:20. Thank you.
You got it right though. I wish I could. Sorry. It was good.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's No, I will, I'm gonna. I know.
Sorry, that's not what that is. Down to the way, almost lost it.
I didn't know I was waiting out. And it looks so
We do apologize that we don't have the results this second. It's taking us a bit longer to tabulate than we thought. So we're gonna keep going and we'll let you, as soon as we have the results in a accurate manner, we will let you know. So we will now move on to the exec report motion. Is there a seconder? Counselor Sani? Execs, you have the floor.
Okay. Hello, Council. I'm excited for this first meeting of the year. I know I saw some of you guys throughout the summer, but I'm happy to see such amazing faces for our first council meeting. So I won't waste too much time because I know we have a super long council meeting, so I'll just go right into it. I'll be brief, I'll be quick, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask at any time. So a little bit of a preamble. So in an effort to reduce the overlap for the updates that you'll hear with all 6 executives, my report here is brief, and the rest of the executives are going to go a little bit further into detail on each of the following topics. Honestly, as president, my job is to set the mandate for each of the initiatives and then work closely with the VPs, respectively, to get that initiative done. So I'm really overarching, and the executives are going to go into detail. So let's start. We'll start with O Week, as always. So O Week 2023. I give a little bit of a why we're doing these initiatives, just so everyone understands what is actually happening here. So this is going to sound really repetitive, as you guys all know why we do O Week, but just for the sake of everyone in the room, I'm going to explain anyways. So O Week is the official welcoming of students on campus. Each year, we work in collaboration with Western University to provide the programming, the services, and structure to the orientation program. And I do this alongside our amazing VPOP, Meredith McFarland. And so I'll go really overarching, and then she'll go a little deeper. So the 3 points that I have here, the first one is the emergency management meetings. So this is worked in collaboration with the university, City of London stakeholders, and to detail the emergency procedure with LPS, fire, and just everyone involved with safety during the week of O Week. So we work in collaboration through emergency management meetings to make sure that we're promoting student safety throughout the entire week in collaboration. Another aspect is International O Week. So this is something I personally did in collaboration with Western International to provide a holistic welcoming experience to all incoming undergraduate students. I gave the famous USC 101 presentation that many of you guys have been a part of. So if you guys saw that presentation, that's the exact one I gave. It was super fun, and everyone really loved exactly what the USC does. And so last but not least, in O Week, the actual execution of O Week. So worked with Meredith to execute the plans, the operations of each of the USC events. We had general oversight over the program in collaboration with the university administration. What that means is we determine when on-call happens, general safety mitigation, daily programming upkeep, so on and so forth with everything orientation. So I'll move forward to clubs training. So the why we do clubs training, it's incredibly critical to properly train the club executives on the new clubs governance policy before clubs week, and that was passed in the last clubs meeting. The last council meeting. So we hosted an in-person training session so that the executives would have a chance to properly absorb all of the information and ask questions in a moment where we're more face-to-face, something that we wouldn't really be able to do over Zoom in an effective manner. So we did it in person, and it seemed like we had really positive feedback all around. So I did this in collaboration with Bianca Gavea. We planned and executed the first in-person clubs training session in almost 2 years, thanks COVID. And we hosted over 800 unique club executives and taught them the ins and outs of the new policy structure and the new services that are at their disposal. One of those new services is a platform Word of Mine in terms of dance spaces. So now all the clubs know all the spaces are available on campus where they can dance. So that was really nice. Moving forward, UTSU and USC relations. So the why we did this one. So managing relations with Ontario student unions is another initiative that is driven by the work of the Vice President of External Affairs. So Emily, as the best student union in Canada, we take pride in providing guidance to the student unions that we advocate alongside. And what that means is what happened throughout the summer a couple of weeks ago. I hosted a visit with the president, the chief operating officer, and the executive assistant at UTSU. So UTSU is a University of Toronto student union to further a collective vision to uplift all universities in Ontario. So what we did, we worked through how a successful student union operates in terms of good governance, financial management, and student services. And then we just had an open and honest discussion on how the USC is structured, how we do it, and then how UTSU does it. And then we just compared and contrasted how our operations work. So it was really great to host them, and they felt awesome. So moving forward with external relations, right here I have Minister Sean Fraser. So I don't know if you guys were aware, Minister Sean Fraser came to visit the Western University a couple of weeks ago. External advocacy is critical to the purpose of this organization. We work diligently to have regular contact with provincial government to advocate on things like affordable student housing, which we heard from amazing delegate candidates earlier. I did this alongside Emily Poirier. We had a roundtable discussion with MP Ariel Kayabaga, Peter Franciscados on affordable student housing in Ontario. But again, I'll let Emily go a little deeper into that. Speaking of ministers, moving forward, we have Minister Seamus O'Regan came to visit as well. So we work closely. And another thing that the USC executive does is we work closely with Western administration to strengthen and build government relations that can and will be used to further advocacy efforts for students at the provincial level. So this is something I did alongside Emily Poirier as well. So we welcomed Minister O'Regan to Western alongside university administration, in which case he gave an announcement funding to CREVAC, which was a great thing that happened down at the education building. Moving forward, coordinator training, this is more of a corporation thing. It's critical that we properly train the employees, that we are actioning the work that is strategized by the executive team. We host training sessions so that coordinators are properly equipped to work in their portfolios. This is something that we did with all the executives. So we hosted part 2 of USC coordinator training. And this entailed the day-to-day operations, employee HR training, executive to coordinator responsibility, so on and so forth. Basically a USC 101, just with a little bit more detail. So this marked the completion of their onboarding, and now they are in full swing of hiring their volunteer team. So moving forward to Senate, we're very lucky to have Emily Kalajian come and give us an amazing presentation. So as you guys know, we sit on the Senate. Well, I sit on the Senate as the voice of students alongside Emily with all university relations. It's critical that we actively contribute to the reoccurring proceedings of the Senate. So the first meeting happened of the academic year at the time last Friday, but not anymore because we're in the next week. So 2 Fridays ago. Moving forward with some EDI strategic planning steering committee. The USC executive team is committed to strengthening the work around equity, diversity, and inclusion around campus. So by contributing to the steering committee, we provide the direct voice for students on efforts that correlate to equality within the student experience. So this is work done with Opio Aloya. So he's the Associate Vice Provost of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion on visioning for the university EDI strategic document that is looking to be published sometime in the new year. This document will act as a foundation for the work that the Office of the EDI will strive to accomplish. Regular meetings will continue. So if you're looking to give feedback, reach out to the office. They're always looking to hear from students. So last but not least, I have USC Club introductions. So in accordance with our values of inclusivity, we hosted meetings with the executives of the ISA and the MSA in order to bolster relations between our leadership teams. This is something, again, I did with all the executives. It was roughly an introductory meeting with the executives of both clubs, and we discussed yearly planning and how the executive team can support the initiatives and advocacy for both clubs. So that's my last point, and then I have 3 wins that I wanted to talk about. The first one was O Week. My kick went further than Ethan's. and I hope he sees this. So I actually I'll text him personally. The second one was another week one. We had dinner at Alan Shepherd's house with the head sauce. Alan has a really nice house, by the way. So if you ever want to visit, just send him a text. And last but not least, our closing ceremonies artist T-Pain ordered a Happy Meal with nuggets for food. So that was that. Thanks, guys. I promised a question period, so if you have any questions, ask now. Sure.
Thanks for the update. I just had a quick question about something that happened last week that I think council could benefit during your vice alpha, I guess. As you know, there was a little bit of backlash from the student community about what happened with Rick McGee. And I know that it was not the exec's decision, but I want to just ask is what would be the correct line to speak to if we wanted to do something about that, or if our constituents wanted to voice their concerns, how would we go about that?
In terms of just speaking to council or speaking to the executives or speaking to staff?
In terms of who spoke management, I believe it was the ones who made the decision. How would students be able to voice their concerns accurately?
So I think in the same way that you can voice your concerns for anything, you can speak to the executive team, you can send any of us an email. So I think that's the best way to go about that.
Okay, so go through the exec.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, should I? Sorry, I'm doing your job. Should I count? Okay.
Just wondering, because dance spaces or like dance is under the jurisdiction of music. Where are the dance spaces in UCC?
So the USC spaces that are already owned by the USC. So one of those spaces we have is actually this room that we're sitting in. We also have the club space. We have Mustang Lounge and McKellar Theater. So 4 spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good all around? Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, hi everybody. So starting off with what I completed, we sourced the period products for Free the Dot. So for the hampers that all the faculty councils were getting, basically I was looking for a distributor to get all the products in each month because as you guys know, we have a lot of products that we need to fill all the bathrooms. So I was able to find a distributor through our health and dental insurance, so my student plan. And in doing this, we were able to receive a $7,000 donation from Rexall, which was matched by my student plan, which is awesome. So that totaled in $14,000 in donations that went towards paying for these products. So we're going to be receiving the first shipment, I think within this week. This is a bit outdated because I wrote this last week. And then there'll be updated kind of rave cards put in the bins that has a QR code that'll include some My Student Plan and Rexall branding with the donation. Also hired all the food support volunteers, so they have completed their training and began running the center, which is really exciting. So they were taught about all the logistics behind stocking the shelves, filling the hampers, how the hamper service works, and also how to handle walk-ins. We also hired our CGB members, which is very excited. So the club's governance board is going to be up and running very soon. They were notified of receiving their position, and they actually just finished their training yesterday. So that's very exciting. We also finished up launching the peer support live chat feature. So at our last meeting, there's still a couple logistics that had to be sorted out for that, but it's officially up and running. And right now, peer support is working on a comms rollout to really get the word out about how to use the live chat feature and how students can access it. As Sunday mentioned, we had in-person clubs training, which was really important just to get students back in person. And also, it can be a lot easier to digest all the information that we give in person. So that was really exciting. We had one session that was also recorded, so that it was still accessible for students who maybe just weren't able to come in person. If they were sick, they didn't miss out. They were able to watch the recording. And it was also really great, so that way club executives could go back to the training. So if there's anything that they forgot, they had that video available to them. And like Sunday mentioned, after the training sessions, there's a lot of positive feedback from club executives saying that the in-person experience was super helpful and that they feel more prepared for the year, which is great. And we also had rave cards that were distributed at Care Hubs during orientation week. And this was to promote the Peer Support Center as well as Food Support Center. One of my goals this year was to really get more outreach for both of these services because they're really great. And sometimes students kind of just don't know that they're available to them. So I was really happy to do that. What was ongoing was Clubs Week, which just finished up. And what I was just doing with that was making sure it ran smoothly and also organizing the first ever low sensory clubs session. I created this just to make Clubs Week even more accessible than it has been in the past. Big crowds can be really overwhelming for some students. And if you've ever gone to Clubs Week, it can definitely be a lot. There's a lot happening around you, a lot of noise, and sometimes it can get really busy. So to make sure that everyone would be able to enjoy Clubs Week, we created the low sensory club session where students could sign up for a half-an-hour time block, and there's a maximum of 30 students that could sign up for each block. And that just allowed students to go into a really quiet space. It also made it more accessible for those who may have physical accessibility needs, because sometimes tighter crowds can really affect that as well. And we had quite a few people sign up, so that was awesome, and received some positive feedback from that as well. So in doing the low sensory club session, we also made sure that club executives really prepared for this as well. So letting them know how they could best accommodate students during these time frames by not playing loud music, being mindful of noise in general, and also letting people approach them. And then also supporting my coordinators. So I've been spending a lot of extra time with each of my coordinators trying to map out all of their goals for the year and making sure that they have all the tools and resources that they need to be successful. Part of that was having a student services social where my coordinators got to mingle with each other, myself, Sunday, as well as my AVP. And I also created some worksheets for them to help them plan out their year and future initiatives. So that included some of the most important contacts aside from myself and my AVP. For example, who to contact to make merch, who to contact if they need help with reserving certain spaces. So they had some extra tools with them, as well as worksheets that help plan out different events they may want to have, and also something just to help them map out their year. I've also established bi-weekly check-ins with each of my coordinators as well. And I've also been giving extra love and attention to food support services. When I was writing this, we had 111 food hamper requests. We are over 210 right now. Last year, for the entire year, there were 750 hamper requests, and it's been about 2 to 3 weeks. So we've seen a huge increase. With that in mind, a lot of my attention has been on supporting food support, our volunteers, and making sure that the center remains stocked. Volunteers know what to do, they're feeling supported and not too overwhelmed. And I'm also currently working on some long-term support and solutions for the rest of the year. Because as data from past years show, back to 2016, September isn't usually when we have the highest numbers. It will get worse into the winter months. So just being prepared for these numbers to continue to increase. Upcoming CGB training. Yes, so just happened yesterday. And the training included the club exec training. So the video that club executives have access to, we also had our CGB members watch that. And then specialized training, just going over briefly all of the new policies, what the responsibilities would be within the CGB, and a couple tools for success. And again, just continuing to support my coordinators. We've established a lot of the high-level initiatives and kind of a lot of the bigger programming that they hope to do this year, so I can help out in any way I can and get things started. One example is starting to talk about Relay for Life with my charity coordinator, and helping organize the high-level planning and logistics like venues and stuff like that. And planning mode. So a lot of my large projects I want to do, I ensure to get done by the end of the summer. That's because with the new role of student services, a big part of it is maintaining and improving the services that start in September. So that's been a really big shift for my portfolio. So that is why I focus a lot of my priority on making sure these services are running smoothly. Like I said, giving lots of extra care and love to food support and finding some better solutions for food support. And as I settle into this new routine and seeing where my portfolios really need my support, if I have time for other initiatives, I'm going to be looking into that as well. And 3 wins. So we received a Walmart grant 2 days ago, which was $1,000 to support food support. So that's awesome. It was really exciting. I also got to talk at O Week on main stage to talk about peer support, which was great. Very scary, but awesome. And I also got to fist bump T-Pain. And yes, T-Pain is cool, but he also did a rap with Taylor Swift, and that made him even cooler. So yeah. Yes.
I was wondering, on the point of food support services, do you think it would be of value or interest? I don't really know if this is for all of council, but would you like faculty councils to, we were thinking about doing like a drive food support services or a fundraiser. Are you guys taking an avenue of going to like things like Walmart and stuff? Or do you think this is something that would be helpful, make an impact? We're interested and we were talking about it. So I wanted to run it by you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know that I've been chatting a lot with like Maria, Emily, and Sunday as well to see how we can get Western involved, and also trying to get some like faculty and staff to get involved, because I also sometimes understand that, you know, students don't always have the capacity to donate. But if you guys are planning on doing drives or open to doing them, absolutely, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
I just had a quick question about the Read the Dot.
Mhm.
The materials that you bought, do you have any idea of like what kinds of products you did buy?
Yeah, so we got regular tampons, super tampons from Tampax, and then also regular size pads. Okay. Thank you.
Hi guys, it's me. Okay, so first off, I have my completed. So obviously the main one is a week. So programming wise, I think it went fairly well. Opening and closing ceremonies, we saw really good turnouts. It was really fun to hear all of the teams' cheers. Our load-in timing was really good this year, which was very slay. Sunday did a great speech. Alan was there. We had some of our key stakeholders come. And then Emily invited some political figures. So the mayor was there, Slay Josh Morgan, MPP, city councilor. So yeah, that was really fun. Some of our key events, our concerts were a big hit. We had some local DJs, which was really nice. We had Ashvin, who actually used to be a SOF. And then of course we had T-Pain. So we got really good feedback on his performance. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. So that was really nice. Global Village was a big success. My AVP, Claire Brown, did a really, really good job on that. She got a lot of the talent for that. So we were really pleased with that. So that and Welcome Waves, which we rebranded from One Love, went really well as well. We had a really good turnout, and I think we got good feedback from the SOFs and students, but we're still waiting on our survey feedback. So we'll see numbers soon, hopefully. But yeah, and then all of our concurrent program went pretty well. We had like a paint by number mural, silent disco, mini golf, arcade games, sex toy bingo, laser tag, magic, hypnotism, all that fun stuff. So yeah, that was our programming. And then our soft appreciation was a lot better this year, I think. We hosted our first event, Soft Pub in the Wave, which was a really successful night. I also did soft kits this year. So all the softs had soft kits, and then Western contributed like gift cards. And we had fun stuff in there, like stickers and hauls and bandanas. So that was really nice. And we're planning to continue soft support. And then I regularly supported like the LSTs with their planning. And they're executing team dynamics and stuff like that throughout the summer and then and a week. And then ran the week itself. So I communicated with exec, staff, stakeholders, and students to run our safe, inclusive, and fun week. Hey, that was a week. Ongoing, we have our programming planning. So I actually just had our program events group meeting today. So that's when I meet with all the staff to figure out how we're going to execute everything. We like bounce ideas off like, oh, maybe not this day or maybe this day, or do we want to do this? So we aren't ready to like hard launch our programming because there's a calm strategy to it, but there's a lot of fun stuff. So some examples are like the wave dance parties are happening again. We're hoping to get trivia at the Spoke going, puppy yoga. We're going to have some arts and crafts evenings. So fun stuff like that. So there'll be like a range of high and low level programming that caters to like the diverse groups of students. Yeah, and then our portfolio. So I have a pretty big portfolio, just like Bianca. So again, just keeping up with the regular touch points for all my coordinators and my AVP and making sure I'm supporting all of their initiatives, as well as like some of my coordinators support me, like Team USC and student events. So keeping in contact with them, and then helping them help me. So yeah, and then upcoming is a VP Fun year. So that's just continuing to execute my programming and supporting my portfolio, and then making sure that a week is in a good place for next year. My 3 wins, they deleted it off my phone, but they put the veggie burger back on the wave menu. I ate 4 miso soups last night, and I met Jack in at Hogo. So those are my wins. Any questions? No. Okay, perfect. You can always come see me after if you think of anything.
Okay, I know my report looks long. I will say that my entire team has told me to keep it short, so I will do my best. Sorry. So the things we've completed this month. So very shortly after our last meeting, I participated in a mobility master plan consultation with city staff, the Society of Graduate Students, who is the grad student union at Western, the Western Government Relations team, and some other people on the USC. So myself, my AVP Anne, and Councillor Kermack. The goal, so the mobility master plan is a long-term mobility strategy for London that they're currently developing. Supposed to be in terms of seeing what driving, walking, transit, all those things will look like in London in 2050. So we talked about some of the concerns that students have, student feedback, specifically some recurring asks from local advocacy last year. So we're able to touch on increasing lighting, protected bike lanes on Western Road and on Richmond, improving snow removal plans, pedestrian scrambles, and the bus rapid transit plans. For O Week, obviously that's something that is primarily overseen by Meredith, but all of us do play a supporting role with that. So myself, as well as the other executives, supported the president and VPOP with rounds, overall coverage on the ground, another set of eyes. But my main role during O Week was hosting politicians during opening ceremonies in Global Village. So at opening ceremonies, we had MPP Kernahan, Councillor Tom Trasso, and Mayor Morgan. And Mayor Morgan gave a brief speech welcoming first years to Western. MPP Kernahan and Councillor Trasso also both came to the Global Village, and they both really enjoyed the performance. Both of these were really successful, and the Mayor's Chief of Staff has reached out asking to do more events with students. So that's really exciting, hopefully allowing students to have more engagement with their city council, to understand more what happens at the municipal level. So a quick preface to everything I'm about to talk about. The reason a lot of this happened was because the Liberal caucus meeting was happening in London this year. So the caucus meeting is basically a pre-team meeting with all the members of the party. So there was ministers all over the place. Some of you may have seen on the news that Trudeau was also in London. He made an announcement here. So it was very, very busy. But as a result, we were able to meet with several ministers. The one that I'm most excited about was we actually hosted a roundtable with Minister Sean Fraser, who is the Federal Minister of Housing, Infrastructure, and Communities. And so we had a conversation with him alongside MP Peter Projascatos, MP Ariel Cayabaga, the Fanto Student Union President, our executive team, and members of Western administration. And we discussed primarily housing in London, and specifically student housing, and alongside transit, mental health, affordability for students across the country. So one thing I will highlight as well is we came in with two primary asks. Both of these asks were explicitly framed as not having been approved by council because they have not been, because we did not have time to. I got information from this meeting on Friday for a Tuesday meeting, so didn't leave a lot of time for turnaround. So thank you, a huge shout out to the research team for being able to prepare us a brief for this. And this is also why our housing policy paper is really, really important, because it'll allow us to have asks that have been approved by council ready to go if we do have really exciting meetings like this. So the two asks that we did put forward were first, that the federal government should develop an initiative to provide below market finance rates for purpose-built student housing near post-secondary institutions. Basically what that means is it's supposed to address the market housing, so housing that's available to the general public. It's intended to increase supply of rental housing that isn't single family homes by decreasing building costs. And purpose-built rental housing is just housing that's meant to be rental housing. And the second ask that we had was that the USC supports Universities Canada's request to enable universities to directly access funding as primary applicants through programs like the Housing Accelerator Fund and other housing initiatives. So this addresses non-market housing, so housing that isn't available to the general public, in this case, things like residences. And it's intended to allow universities to access the $4 billion of funds allocated in 2022 to aid municipalities in their housing supply. Right now, only municipalities can apply for that. But obviously a lot of universities are the size of small towns and have a lot of infrastructure. So we were, by allowing universities to apply, this would allow universities to increase their on-campus housing supply, allowing for more students to stay on campus, and also decrease pressure on the local housing supply in the surrounding communities. So the minister was very receptive and really eager to hear our perspectives, which is really, really exciting. I think that based on how that meeting went, I think we came away feeling very happy with it, and he seemed very happy with it as well. So it's all you can ask for. Another meeting that the USC participated in was with Minister Anita Anand, who is president of the Treasury Board. Basically, the Treasury Board oversees all the internal finance for the federal government. So this year, the Treasury Board is doing a review and trying to get departments to find $15.4 billion in cuts by October. And this was through the London Chamber of Commerce. Unfortunately, I conflicted with the Minister Reagan visit that Sunday mentioned, so I sent my AVP, Anne. So we went over this before she went, that we stressed the importance of student programs to the minister, namely the Canada Summer Jobs and Canada Student Grants programs. Canada Summer Jobs is funding that allows employers to fund a student employee over the summer. Some of you may have had Canada Summer Jobs roles. There's a ton of roles for that. And Canada Student Grants is grant funding that is included in financial aid. So if you are on OSAP, you receive most likely a portion of Canada Student Grants. It is a portion of OSAP funding. Again, the minister is very receptive and actually gave Anne her Director of Operations card to follow up and continue conversations. So hopefully we'll be able to continue having conversations with Minister Anand. As Sunday touched on as well, the Minister of Labor, Seamus O'Regan, also came to campus. Labor is not a super student-facing portfolio. It's primarily concerned with federal employees and employees in federal regulated workplaces, but he was here to announce funding for CRUVAC, which is super exciting because hopefully this kind of research will also support gender-based violence in all types of ways in terms of prevention. And so it's also an opportunity to engage with the federal minister and strengthen relationships with Western's government relations team. Sunday and him bonded on being from Newfoundland, so that was fun. He also ended up on Minister Reagan's Instagram. We also had USC Day, which went really well. A shout out to Sanjana for helping run the booth when I wasn't there. We also soft launched our affordability survey at USA Day, which some comments will be coming out later in the month due to congested survey schedules, because as you all know, everyone wants to hear your opinions and everyone wants to ask you questions. So we're trying not to overwhelm students. And it will be supported by boothing on campus. It primarily covers 5 areas: so housing, student financial aid, tuition, food security, and student employment. So these results are going to be used to support advocacy. So things like USA policy papers, our housing policy paper, the tuition policy paper later this year, as well as services, especially what Bianca touched on with food support, better understanding what food security looks like for students on campus, so we can better address the issue beyond food support and finding some of those root causes. Another thing we're working on is a municipal roundtable. This is a platform point for me. So it's basically intended to be a roundtable with all student associations in London to have the jurisdiction to do independent municipal lobbying. So that's us, SOGS, the Fair Trade Student Union, and then all 3 affiliate councils. So we've reached out to all parties and are looking to meet soon. But the big goal of this is make it so that we're advocating municipally. We're not just advocating on behalf of 35,000 students, but we're collaboratively advocating on behalf of 60,000. Oftentimes in London, like even though college students or grad students might have some different concerns when it comes to their institutions, everyone has problems with transit, everyone has problems with housing, and our asks are usually very, very similar. So this would allow us to be very united in those asks. Another platform point that I've been working on is reaching out to constituent councils. So all of your faculty presidents would have received an email from me asking for legislative calendars so that the USC executive can come visit. Basically to kind of introduce ourselves to your councils beyond just our faces on a screen, be able to talk about the work we do and ensure that students outside of the actual immediate USC are able to understand what we're doing, and also provide space for questions so that people are able to ask questions about what we're doing. So we're looking to hopefully come to the first meeting after by-elections and hiring. Lots of scheduling fun with that, so that might not happen, but it will be this term. Additionally, I've been working on the housing paper alongside our research team. So our secondary research has been primarily finalized. So we have a tentative list of asks for Western, for the municipality, for the provincial government, federal government, as well as some asks for all 3 levels. So I'll be able to present that more in depth at our next EA Standing Committee meeting, and we'll also be providing it in the discussion item at the next October meeting to give you a little bit more time to work on that. But that is going to be followed up with some consultations. Last meeting, there was also a question about the pedestrian safety motion that happened last year. So I wanted to just bring an update on that and make sure that you guys all really understood what was going on there. So all the stances in the motion that were mentioned were covered in our transit and pedestrian safety policy. And in terms of the advocacy that we've been doing on it, so I touched on some of it in the mobility master plan discussion. So increasing light fixtures, protected bike lanes on Western and Richmond Road, snow removal on bike lanes, snow removal on sidewalks, coordinating snow removal between the city and university so you don't get giant piles of snow at the edge of sidewalks, which tends to happen. As well as lowering the speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour on Sarnia, which is like right that intersection near OHAL, and as well as a pedestrian scramble at that intersection to help prevent pedestrian injuries. So recommendations 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 were advocated on at that consultation, as I mentioned. And as well, we will be making sure that pedestrian safety is reflected in at least one of the recommendations for the municipal budget submission, which we are currently working on. It's also a roadmap priority, so will be followed up on. Speaking of budget submissions, we worked on our provincial budget submission. It's up for approval this meeting. So it covers student financial aid, housing, and GBSU prevention. We can dig into that a little bit later at the motion. For those of you who are a little bit familiar with council, you might have noticed that this is much earlier than we've done in the years past. And this is actually by design. So a lot of times the provincial government opens up submissions in like January. The budget's released in March. By that point, a lot of times, a lot of things are already set in stone. And so what I'm hoping to do this year is to advocate more proactively, to advocate more proactively on different areas so that we are able to ensure that those sorry, I can hear Sunday things saying things. That to ensure that we are being more proactive in those decision making, so make sure that student issues are at the top of the agenda. So then we'll have body text closer to when the deadline is, so we actually have parameters and are able to lobby on those so that they're more adequately reflected. We also did an introduction. We also did an introductory meeting between the Muslim Student Association and the USC exec and discussed some of our priorities for the year. And then had another introductory meeting with the Indigenous Student Association, and specifically in terms of external affairs priorities. We wanted to discuss the ISA's opinion on some of CASA, so which we are currently observers of on their National Indigenous Advocacy Committee, and whether that fits Western students' needs in terms of Indigenous advocacy. I also finished our first draft of the USA Rural and Northern Students paper. So that's what I've got going on. That's going to be completed. Some upcoming things are USA consultations. Those were supposed to start this month, but due to the ministerial visits, which we weren't anticipating, stuff got pushed around, so had to be put on the back burner momentarily, but we'll be starting them very soon. I will be following up with dates once they're set, so that council is able to know and share them with their constituents. Along similar on a similar vein, housing consultations. Again, making sure that we're keeping those, we're getting student feedback and making sure that our asks are in line with what students are needing. Continuing to lobby the federal budget submission, so meeting with our local MPs, really bringing forward our concerns with what we want to see reflected in the budget. And then alongside, I mentioned boothing for the affordability survey, so I may be reaching out for counselors for support on that in terms of timing. So upcoming things, I kind of mentioned this a little bit, the mini lobby week on provincial budget submission, so I'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks of talking to the finance committee provincially. USC delegate training, after we know who our USC delegates are, the second draft of our USC policy papers, and the municipal budget submission. And now that I'm done my very long report, I can share with you my wins. Driving a golf cart during O week, very exciting. Got my G1 for that, so super exciting for that. Thursday meeting was a huge win. I was talking to staff, and I don't know when was the last time we hosted a federal minister, so that was really, really exciting and cool O week fits. So yeah. Yeah. Any questions?
I would like to apologize to our USA candidates who sat through in order to hear the results, in order to give the most accurate results, so we're not saying anything that's untrue. We're gonna actually request 48 hours, and also USA candidates will hear first. I will send you an email personally as soon as we have the results. I do apologize if you need to leave to go to class. I can write you a note or something, but we will not have the results for another 48 hours. I apologize. Maria, safe.
Nice. Thank you, guys. I'll wait for people to leave.
Okay, can you call for tell us shut up?
Order, please.
Hey, hi, everyone. I'm just going to be giving my updates. Thank you. So completed. So for kosher and halal update, I met with Colin Porter, who's the hospitality director, on what is available in residences and the future plans for residence buildings when it comes to a kosher kitchen. So they do have pre-made meals right now. And if a student would like to request it, they can go up to any staff member, but they're not promoting it really well. And then for future plans, they're thinking to implement the kosher kitchens in the new residences. Mental health policy paper, so the research is complete. The recommendations have been picked out. I've been sharing them with stakeholders and my standing committee. And the focus group recruitment happened on USC Day, September 19th and 20th. So if you saw me around with an iPad, that was me recruiting students. Feature of Free the Dot. So I met with Provost Florentine and just asked what this project looks like beyond this year. And right now I'm in the collection phase for student feedback. So I have the link here, but I will be sharing this in the Slack just so you guys can forward it to your faculty councils and we can hear from students on how they're feeling about the machines in the washrooms. I had an introduction meeting with Vice Provost International, Lily Cho. I also attended Western in the World, which is a global engagement plan for Western. I had first meetings of the year for SuperU and ACA. So these are both academic policy and program review. So if you have any questions about any of those, let me know. I also sit on the gender-based sexual violence advisory committee with the Vice Provost and Vice Provost John Dirksen and also Provost. So they came to this meeting. They provided direction on what recommendations to focus on for Western. And then this group kind of meets every month. So I'm hoping to give like a monthly update once for the next exec meeting.
And then for a week, I just supported BPOP as much as needed. I did those snack runs with her. And then I hosted the university stakeholders. And then we also met with ISA and MSA. So I'm also the point of contact for both of these groups. For ongoing, I met with the university registrar. I'm in discussions on increasing the add and drop deadline. The research has been done, so the U15 universities were a little bit behind, and every other university kind of gives students the weekend. We don't do that, and that's what I'm hoping for. At least my ask is hopefully more, but at least match the U15. I sent out my VP academic roundtable invitations. I got a lot of yeses, so I'm hoping that happens in the next 2 following weeks, just because I got added to an academic policy senate working group, which I want to make sure my voice is informed on that. So whatever I hear in that meeting, I will be bringing it to the roundtable. And ongoing is just collecting the feedback for Free the Dot. I'm also working with Western International, so I'm a member of their committee to ensure International Week in November goes well. I had a meeting with Tracy Isaacs and Terry McQuaid yesterday, but it instead became a meeting with experts in the gender-based violence community. So I just was the person who connected Tracy Isaac with the USC because we do soft hiring, and they wanted to ensure the way softs are hired, it's through a gender-based violence lens. So right now we're looking at soft hiring questions. And then for upcoming, I'm just going to be looping back to Western Hillel on everything I discussed with Colin Porter. And then the focus groups are next week on October 2nd and 3rd. And then Mental Health Day is coming up, which I will be taking the lead. And my wins are very similar to Emily. I loved golf carting around campus. I gave out pit vipers to softs, which was really fun. And then I also submitted the Free the Dot report to receive the rest of the 400K funding. That's all. Questions? Okay, thanks.
Hi guys, I have a little bit of bad news because I submitted my report to Sunday and Sunday was like, you do so much more, you need to give yourself more credit. So I rewrote my report with more detail. So it's going to be a little bit longer, but the report with more detail will be included in the minutes. I've already sent it along to Bella. For me, completed a week, very exciting. Not only my role as like an exec and supporting Meredith, but there's also a heavy comms aspect to it. So we had the O-Week app. So we promoted the app before O-Week and during O-Week. I also led logistical support during the week, such as importing events, creating groups, and uploading users. For O-Week, I also led the LST communications training. So I debriefed them on the media protocol during O-Week, promoted the app to them, and discussed social media strategies for social media campaigns so that they can continue to engage with their first years throughout the year. I also help with the 411 guide. So this is like one of the ways that the communications portfolio supports other executive portfolios. This was an important aspect of soft support, and it was also important to Meredith. So I coordinated the soft 411 guide for faculty softs. Some of the things that were mentioned is like how to be a soft and like important contact info, stuff like that. We also had the all coordinator training, like Sunday mentioned. So the USC finished the onboarding process for all of our coordinators, and I was a part of the onboarding. I led kind of like a short USC comms training, talking about USC communications in general, and also effective communication strategies if they run social media. At clubs training, kind of the same thing. I talked to club execs about the app and how the comms team can support them throughout the year. We also spent some time over the summer and into September uplifting student leaders on social media. So this is a strategy that we have to showcase and support our student leaders, and it's a part of kind of the USC's larger internal community outreach within communications. An example of this was the coordinators committee's recruitment Instagram story. So we collected all the information for all of our coordinators who are hiring people. And then also the follow your soft Instagram in feed posts that some of you guys might have seen the week before a week. Ongoing, technically it's done now, the Unsanctioned Street Party Task Force. So we're consulted by Western for the alternative programming, which was a fan festival, and also the communications plan to make sure that it's student friendly. Also building my student team. So we had brand journalism training that actually just wrapped up last week. So I have 2 brand journalist coordinators who are authors and editors for USC Voice. Brand journalism and USC Voice itself is a USC's long form communication method to tell the USC story and uplift the people behind the USC. I also led app training for my community engagement coordinator. And so I just trained her on the back end of the app so that we can continue to use it throughout the year. The Sunday series, which I'm really excited about. So the Sunday series is every single Sunday on our Instagram. It's an Instagram story. It gives a chance for Sunday to talk to students directly and tell our over 25,000 followers what we do and most importantly, why we do it. With 4 Sunday series achieved so far, we have an average of 9,000 views on the stories, and 480 people have visited our profile because of these stories. So this is awesome engagement and shows that it works. And then a big part of my job is supporting each executive on their media requests. So we just actually got some really good press from CBC, CTV, and Global News on the food bank. This is a part of advancing our media strategy and spending time investing in our relationships with local and national media. And most importantly, it shows that we are highly regarded as a national student voice, and we want to make sure that we continue to build that credibility throughout the media. Something I'm really excited about is Radio Western at the Spoke. So this is one of the projects that I kind of ideated when I was a student, and I actually got to implement as an exec, which is crazy to me. But now Radio Western has kind of like a live to air show every Tuesday from 2 to 4 p.m. in the Spoke. So Radio Western brings down their own equipment, like turntables and like record players down to the Spoke on the stage. And the student hosts can sign up each week to kind of host the radio show in the Spoke directly to air on the stage. This is once again a part of that kind of internal community outreach strategy that I mentioned, which the goal is to uplift the voices of groups and students who are kind of USC adjacent. So who are associated with the USC, but we want to make sure that we're like uplifting those voices. Another thing is council office hours. This is an opportunity for councilors to meet with exec and ask some questions about council agenda items or what we're working on, or just questions about our executive report. So we had it last week from 12 to 1 on Friday. And we are doing it again this Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. So if you have any questions about any of the motions or anything that we do, stop on by. There's going to be donuts and they're really good. And then also always ongoing supporting each executive on the communications need. So making sure students know kind of what each executive is doing. For example, like recently Bianca with kind of the clubs and the food support media help, Meredith with O Week, Sunday of the Sunday series, stuff like that. Upcoming, that really isn't upcoming anymore because it's done, was homecoming. So the fan festival and the homecoming breakfast. We were consulted on these projects and we actually served pancakes at the homecoming breakfast, which was really fun. VP Communications Roundtable. So I'll be sending out invitations shortly. This is an opportunity for other VP Communications on campus to kind of come together and discuss what we have going on, and also provide an opportunity for student leaders to connect and learn from each other, especially in comms. There's a lot to learn. We also have a collaboration with London Tourism for a social media campaign coming up. This is going to be over fall reading week, as we will see a lot of students who are going to be in London, such as international students or out of province students, and we'll also have free time because it's not classes. It's going to be called So You Know Richmond Row, and it highlights places and things to do around London. This is kind of an external community building campaign. We're hoping to improve Western students' integration into the London community. Also, importantly, council recap videos. So Isha, my EVP, who's in the audience, she's going to be leading those. So I sent an email right before the council meeting because somehow she wasn't able to send it for the council list. But if you have any questions, ask Isha, she's your gal. And it's an opportunity for you guys to kind of speak directly to students, and also for students to see your counselors, like see what you do and how you do it and why you do it. My 3 exec wins was defeating COVID. I had it for 4 days and now I'm back and better than ever. Experiencing my first global village. which was really exciting and so good. And I got to see Saltina Shika, who's one of my favorite drag queens. And also telling you this pun. So what is something that you guys all deserve and also the name of a spoke bagel? Do you know? Everything. Thanks, guys. Oh. Are there any questions about anything? No? Awesome.
Okay. That concludes our exec reports. Order. That concludes our exec reports. As always, for the majority of our motions, we'll be having an additional question and our debate period and call to question next week. So we're going to move on to our next motion now. Which is the provincial budget submission recommendations. President Ajak is the mover. Is there a seconder? Yep. Can you say your name, last name into the mic, please?
Ayala.
Okay, you got that. President Ajak, you have the floor.
I'll waive my speaking rights to Emily. And speaking of speaking, I just saw the Slack, and if you're wondering why I was laughing, go read the Slack. You'll understand why.
That is also why I was laughing. As I mentioned in my report, so the pre-budget consultations, it's basically just reflecting what we want reflected in the provincial budget as it will hopefully come out in March. So I talked about a lot of this earlier, but the recommendations that we're making this year are there's like 3.5, let's say, 3 primary areas, one with 2 kind of sub areas. So the first is getting the provincial government to remove interest on Ontario Student Assistance Program, so OSAP student loans for new graduates. This would be in line with what the federal government did last year, so hopefully we can add pressure on the provincial government to do the same, and hopefully we'll have no more interest on loans at all, which would be great. Additionally, the second recommendation is for the provincial government to increase investments in safety. So first, to allocate funding to the Ministry of Colleges and Universities to administer a survey across post-secondary institutions to measure students' experiences and perceptions of violence on campus. So you might have also heard this referred to as the Campus Climate Survey. And it's basically getting an actual understanding of what safety looks like on our campuses. One of the big issues when it comes to gender-based violence prevention currently is that we only have one set of data that is across for all post-secondary institutions in the province. That's from 2018. So of course, with COVID and with just 5 years of time, things have significantly changed in terms of what gender-based violence looks like on university and college campuses. And so in order to address the actual issue of gender-based violence, we need data. And so that's intended to help alleviate that gap. And secondly, the provincial government should allocate long-term sustainable funding to gender-based violence prevention offices on post-secondary campuses. So this is part something that is actually on our roadmap as well. And is intended to make sure that the gender-based violence prevention offices that all universities are required to have sustainable funding to do things in prevention, like campaigns, to have adequate caseworkers, all these different things to make sure that they're actually able to give students the support that they need when it comes to violence and response. And third, we have the provincial government should invest in and incentivize the rapid construction of purpose-built rental housing. So this is a little bit of a new rec for us. Again, continuing on the housing theme, which I think seems to be the theme of the year. So one of the issues right now in a lot of municipalities is that there just are not enough homes. In London, this is continuing to be an issue as well. London is a very, very rapidly growing area. And a lot of the housing is not really set up to be built for rentals or for students. And so we want the provincial government to really take steps to incentivize there to be more builds more quickly to ensure that we're able to keep pace with the growing student population and the growing population overall in London.
Are there any questions on this? Okay, if there are none, then we will move on to our next motion. Again, we are going to be having our debate, further question period, and call to question next
week.
Okay, motion 4, which is bylaw 2. President Ajak is the mover. Is there a seconder? Counselor Sani. President Ajak, you have the floor.
Okay, after Peter's amazing remarks, is everyone sort of aware of what's going on with the bylaw too, or would you guys like me to explain a little deeper? Or just a little bit more of a overarching? How are we feeling? Can I do that, Bella?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that okay, guys? Put like your thumbs up if you're feeling good about it, or if you want me to, and put your thumb up if you think I should explain a little bit deeper. Explain, okay, I'll do that then. And again, Peter, hop in if you want at any time. Okay, so I try to be clear and concise. So the changes to bylaw 2 were something that has been in the works for the last, well, long before any of our terms. It's actually something that started, I think, 3 to 4 years back when the concerns around bylaw 2 were first initially brought up. Essentially, the changes that surround the following themes. As the governing body here on campus, it's our responsibility to ensure that we have a fair, clear, and inclusive election process. Not saying that bylaw 2 as it stands is not any of these things. The motion is really an accumulation of improvements that should have existed within our bylaw 2 regardless. When you think of the differences between our bylaw, our policies, and our procedures, one of the amazing metaphors that I always use is imagine you're building a house from the ground up. The bylaws should exist as your foundation. So just like Peter mentioned, they should be really high level, but really strong. And then your policies should be the walls. So the walls that you have in your house, and then procedures should be pieces of furniture, right? So pieces of furniture you can move around as many times as you like. Walls you can move around every couple of years, but you don't really want to keep them. You don't really want to move them too much. But your foundation, your bylaws, that should be something that stands firm and like really, really founded. So as it currently stands, but our bylaw had policies and procedures that were incredibly hard to understand. So much so that with legal counsel, it was hard for them to even understand it as well. So this is a strong indicator that we drifted away from our strategic vision in the past. As with many of our policies and procedures, or like the walls and the furniture in this house, we've had new tenants or counselors per se come in year after year and add, subtract, and move the furniture around so much so that the house or our bylaw is hard to understand. So the changes that we're proposing here surround one inherent theme, and that is risk mitigation. Right now, there's a pretty large hole within our governance structure that produces the perception, and this is what Peter was talking about before, the perception of a biased election process. So if a student were to look at the governance over our election, they would see a bylaw that oversees the election being overseen again by the very council in which the student wants to be elected upon. So that perception alone is good enough reason for us to make this change. But really the emphasis here is that the jurisdiction is not completely shifted. There still exists joint jurisdiction over the foundation of the house. So that's the bylaw, but the walls and the furniture, that is what's actually being moved here. And the reason we're doing this is to essentially dissolve that perception and affirm the idea of risk mitigation under our election procedure. The USC has a risk register where we list the biggest risks to the organization, and that is shared with the board of directors. And because they have fiduciary responsibility over the organization, and our election process has sat very high on that risk register for a number of years now. So as a final note, again, I want it to be super clear. As a final note, I want to ensure everyone on what's going on here. This motion strengthens good governance practices, ensures a clear and fair election process, and mitigates risk to the organization. And all three of these things work to make our elections so much better. And as we can all agree, our election processes sometimes at the higher level can get a little messy. So we want to make sure that they're easier to manage. Is that good enough explanation for everyone in the room?
Questions? Yeah, Councilor Kermit.
Thanks, Sunday. I'm just gonna ask the same thing that I asked you, like personally, just so that council understands.
Yeah.
So my understanding of the motion is that if it passes, then council will still be able to make recommendations on elections, but it needs to, all the recommendations that we make need to go through the board. And so they're more of like the sober second thought, right?
100%.
And so board cannot make decisions without council's recommendation. Like they can't just go in and take and change elections policy, that has to come from our recommendation. And then they can make the appropriate amendment after our recommendation. Is that correct?
You want to hop on this, Peter?
I was gonna say, sorry, I was just looking to Sunday because my understanding is that the reverse is not true, but Sunday's gonna be the expert on bicameral nature here. But my understanding is once the jurisdiction moves over to the board, at that point, unless there's something that says otherwise, it would be within the board's discretion or purview to make changes without council, like without necessarily listening to council or requiring a recommendation first. But you're the expert on bicameral. But that's just my understanding.
So I think what Peter's trying to allude to is that if there was a recommendation that council wanted to put forward, that board is still, they still have the inclination to hear that recommendation.
Yes.
So that's it. Peter, is that what you're mentioning?
Yes.
Yes. So that's.
Okay, I
clear
misunderstood
there.
the question.
Yeah.
sorry.
So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Yes.
I just had a question about like in your metaphor, the walls and the furniture.
Mhm.
Where is that being moved to now that it's not in the bind?
Like the walls and the furniture?
Yeah.
It's being moved to board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Further questions? Okay, then we will continue on. This is the motion. The motion for the executive reporting policy. The mover is Councillor Wang. Is there a seconder? Councillor Kermack, Councillor Wang, you have the floor.
All right, so what this motion essentially is, it's just a housekeeping motion. Basically, governance and finance has 5 policies up to review this year. And at our previous governance and finance committee meeting, we reviewed the executive reporting policy where we unanimously decided that this policy did not need further amendment. And so this motion is being brought before council to renew the exec reporting policy for another 3 years. And just a bit of context about the exec reporting policy. It basically, just states that the exec needs to present a report at each month's council meeting, and that we're allowed to ask questions and we have to approve it. So as you can see, nothing too complex about it. We found it to be pretty straightforward, and we feel that we can just go ahead and renew it without many amendments. So that's this motion.
Okay, are there questions on this? All right, so with that, we will move on to the emergency motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Sani, yeah. Microphone, please.
Okay, so I just have a question, because of what happened last year with a lot of med-sci students not being able to run due to the bylaw. So if the responsibility of this bylaw gets transferred over to the board,
I'm so sorry, we're out of the question period for motion 4, but we will have a question period next week for motion 4. Save that.
Oh, okay, cool.
If this was for motion 4, then
I think.
Okay.
What is motion 5?
Motion 5 is to renew the exec reporting policy. We just moved past motion 4. Motion 4, which was the bylaw motion. But actually, I just wanted to take this opportunity to jump in. If you have questions, you can actually go to exec office hours this week and ask them directly. So that works too.
Thank you.
Good plug. Okay.
Thanks.
Are there questions on motion 5? Okay, if there are no questions on motion 5, we'll move into the amended agenda motion, which we will actually vote on given the timely nature of it. It needs to be approved before Tuesday. Our next council meeting's Wednesday when it be approved. So we're going to be voting on it today using placards. One second. I believe President Ajak is the mover. Is there a seconder? Say your last name into the mic, please.
Stasi?
Okay.
Pardon me?
Say that one more time.
Stasi.
President Ajak, you have the floor.
Oh, sorry, no, we're pass it to you, want to speak to that? I'll pass my right to Sam.
Okay, so I actually forgot to mention this in my exec report, but there is, I know it's shocking that I forgot to mention something in that long report. But there is a housing public participation meeting coming up. And basically what this is, it is a opportunity for members of the community to speak about upcoming changes or things happening within city council. And this public participation meeting is on a proposed motion for the City of London to increase the as of right housing zoning. And basically what this means is this is part of the deal that London made in order to receive the $74 million of housing accelerator funding. And what this does is it allows there to be 4 residential units per lot instead of 3 without any kind of zoning changes or permits. It basically makes it a lot easier for people to build houses without needing to go through a bunch of logistical issues. And this was a recommendation that was made by the federal government and by a lot of different agencies as well in different ways. This is something that it is building off of something the provincial government did last year in terms of right now the base minimum of as of right units that you need to have in a municipality in Ontario is 3. So this is to strengthen that even further. And really the goal of this is to strengthen London's housing density, which really with 2 goals of building houses more quickly, houses more easily, as well as having them more controlled in one spot, which assists with transit and a lot of different issues. And so the reason that this is important to be approved is I technically need to have all of the stances we have approved before I speak on them. And I want to speak at the public participation meeting in favor of this motion to really make sure that the USC's voice is being considered in this discussion and why it's important to students, and really reiterating to groups who maybe don't always think of students as an important stakeholder in the discussion on housing, that we are a huge stakeholder, that we are often a population that doesn't get considered with housing, and really reiterating that voice. So basically what this motion does is, first of all, it endorses this position, as well as endorses me speaking in favor of this proposal at the upcoming public participation meeting.
Questions? Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, because on there it says up to 3 units for multiplexes. It's 4, right?
Yes, so the reason that wording is different in the motion is because it'll allow for 4 total units, but the wording used in the bylaw is 2 additional units to 3 additional units. So beyond the initial house or initial residence that was proposed. So it is the same intention. It's just made to reflect what the wording of the bylaw was. So it's all residential zoning. It doesn't include things like multi-story buildings, but it's single detached, semi-detached, like what you generally think of as like a single family home or like those kinds of houses.
Further questions? Okay, if there are none, we'll now move on to the debate period. Are there any points of debate in favor, against, or amendments to be made at this time? Okay, if there are none, I will call to question. We're voting by placards, so when I tell you what you want to vote for, or raise your placard high, keep it while I count, and like stay there. Okay, those in favor, please raise your hand / placard. Don't move. Okay. Lower. Those against? And those abstaining? Okay, this motion passes unanimously. Please feel free to clap. Okay, that concludes our motions. We will now move on to board information, which there are none, And now into for discussion, which we have the Free the Dot updates to begin it.
Okay, so this is something that both me and Maria want to bring forward to discuss because throughout Free the Dot's history, there's kind of been a lack of clarification as to where different parts of Free the Dot really lie across the executive roles and kind of who is responsible for what. And we want to make sure that you guys know who your point of contact is for each part of Free the Dot and how you can connect with us and just make sure that everyone has a really good understanding of the program. I'll let Maria start.
So for my roles and responsibilities, I'm figuring out the future of Free the Dot. It was a 2-year pilot project, which is ending in May. So when I'm the person who's having conversations with the provost to see what it looks like beyond this year. Am I allowed to put more machines in washrooms, which is something I've heard. I've heard a lot of students reach out to me that Taylor's missing one. Like there's so many washrooms on campus that are high traffic foot areas that are missing these machines. So I'm in conversation with the provost on that. All advocacy efforts such as like educational events is under me. And basically I'm planning the long-term advocacy efforts of what menstrual equity kind of looks like on campus. Is this something the USC will do forever? Is this something Western is willing to take on? Is this a collaboration? And I'm just the person who's leading the conversations with stakeholders, and then where the USC kind of fits in that future.
Yeah, and so with that, when you hear Free the Dot in the future, that's really just referring to the advocacy efforts. That's where Free the Dot started, I think 5 years ago, was really the advocacy. And so we want to make sure that when you hear Free the Dot, your mind goes to the advocacy efforts. And then where I come in is kind of the new name that we've come up with, which is the Menstrual Equity Hamper Program, or MEP, which is fun. We love acronyms at the USC. And this is the faculty council kind of hamper program where you guys receive the bins of period products to distribute amongst washrooms that do not have citron machines. So I handle all the current logistics around that. As you guys know, our food support volunteers help to make sure those hampers are filled for you guys. So yeah.
So we kind of wanted to bring this as a discussion item because in the roadmap, it's mostly is talking about the future, and both Bianca and my name is on it. So we were just bringing it to this council floor to see if we did want to separate these two things on the roadmap, just so it's more clear and who the point of contact is, especially when at the end of the year to see who's accomplished what and just checking that box up. So it's up to you guys if you want to see this as two separate things, because it is two separate things. And we don't want to confuse anyone, but the roadmap did pass. So that's why we're bringing it as a discussion item to make an amend, put it back in.
Okay, if there are any discussion points, feel free to raise your placard.
We can send the blurb out too, if that's helpful before next, or no, we're voting now.
There's something to vote on.
Okay, okay.
We can revisit, this can be the introduction and we'll revisit this next week. Okay, our next board discussion item is the mental health resources for Mustang Athletic Council. Whoever's discussion item is that.
Hi, everyone. I'll make this really quick, but my name is Blythe and I'm the president of the Mustangs Athlete Student Council, which is also known as MASC. So the role of MASC is to represent all student athletes while also working to strengthen the sense of community within Western athletics and become involved in the London community. So due to recent events within the athletics community, MASC has reflected on our presence in the community and ways we can better support our athletes. So one gap that I noticed is that in the past, the MASC president was connected to the USC, but this connection has not been present over the past few years. Rebuilding this relationship will allow us to support the athletic community with academics, resources for mental health and gender-based violence, and generally increase school spirit. Another item that MASC is currently working on is building a team of student athletes whose focus will be on increasing availability and accessibility of mental health and wellness resources for student athletes. To put it simply, the main reason I wanted to come here is to become a familiar face to you all, as there will be hundreds of athletes within your constituencies who will benefit from our relationship becoming stronger. If you have any questions regarding student athletes at Western, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
I'll send across her contact info to make it more accessible. Questions and comments from the Western community? Mhm. Can you speak into a mic? Thank you.
Hello, as the first non-USC student to speak here, I'd like to say that it's good to see you. Now, I want to look at the bylaw, and specifically Appendix D, but on the website, like the Google form is not available for people who don't have sign-in permission. Would that be openable?
Yes,
Excellent.
yes, yes. Yes, it can. I think the answer is yes. Okay, cool. Further questions or comments from the Western community? So exciting. Is there any new business at this time? I'll take a motion for, okay, Counselor Ding, you have to make the motion.
I motion for adjournment.
Okay, President Ajak will be the seconder. Are there any objections to terminating this meeting with a re-adjournment happening next week at 7 p.m. in the same room? Okay, enjoy your evening.
Oh my God.
They don't have Slack or anything, so like, how am I gonna get your vote? Like, you can like smoke signal it somewhere. All right. The time is 7:06. The second half of the September meeting is now called to order. As we did all the procedural things in the first half of the meeting taking place last week, we just go straight into our motions. Or okay, perfect. Okay, well, our first motion that we're voting on today is the exec report motion. Reopening the question period. Are there questions at present on the exec report motion? Okay, if there are no questions, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made to motion number 2? Okay, if there are no points of debate or amendments to be made, I'm calling to question. Please head over to Echo 360 or Slack or Messenger to submit your vote. Okay, this motion passes unanimously, so please feel free to clap. Okay, our second motion that we're voting on today is the provincial budget submission recommendation. So just as a reminder, it's whereas the provincial government will be accepting written submissions for the pre-budget consultation in advance of the upcoming 2024 provincial budget to increase the efficacy of the recommendations made, the Vice President EA wishes to lobby on the recommendation as the budget is drafted. Be it resolved that council approves the provincial pre-budget submission recommendations. Are there questions on this? Okay, if there are no questions, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made to motion number 3? Okay, if there are none, please cast your votes. Okay, this motion also passes unanimously. Please feel free to clap. Okay, moving on to motion 4, which is the bylaw 2 changes for 2023 to 2024. Whereas the USC elections are overregulated and written in legal speak, whereas the way in which the USC elections rules are written acts as a barrier to easy entry for students in student politics, be it resolved that the University Student Council approves bylaw 2 as amended in Appendix D. Actually, I think I might be reading the outdated version. Does anybody know if I am or not? Am I reading the, Sunday, would you mind reading the most updated version of this motion? Thank you.
Sorry. Is this working? I
Mhm.
think we need to make an amendment to the last be it I know we're not at the point yet, but we might need to make an amendment to the last be it resolved clause. Sorry. Oh, was it moved up? Can I read it from there? Oh, okay, so it's moved to the second one. I'll just read it out here just so everyone knows. Whereas the USC elections are overregulated and written in legal speak, whereas the way in which the USC election rules are written acts as a barrier to easy entry for students into student politics, be it resolved, the University Student Council approves bylaw 2 as amended in Appendix D. Be it further resolved, these changes do take effect until January 1st, 2024. Be it further resolved that the University Student Council transfer authority in all elections related policies and procedures to the USC Board of Directors. And finally, be it further resolved that the University Student Council transfer authority of the Elections Governance Committee to the USC Board of Directors. And Bella, just at this point, should I make an amendment now to the second be resolved clause? Be it further resolved?
Are there questions?
Sorry.
Okay, if there are none, go ahead.
So the second be it further resolved clause says these changes do take effect until January 1st, 2024. And I don't think we want to vote on something that's going to last for the next 2 months. So clerical error here. It's these changes do not take effect until January 1st, 2024.
Yeah, sorry, I should have caught that.
Yeah.
Seconder. Purple, can you say your name into the mic? Last name, please.
Teles Jimenez.
Okay, are there questions on the amendment being made? Are there points of debate or amendments to the amendment being made? Okay, if there are none, all those opposed to correcting the clerical error in motion number 4. Okay, if there's no opposition, the motion is going to continue as amended with, as you can see, I think Simon's updating it in the agenda right now, so that's where the most updated version is going to be. Okay, are there any points of debate or amendments to be made at this time? And I'll also take questions because we kind of breezed by that. Yep, Councilor Leokakos.
This is kind of question to Sunday, just to kind of make sure I was on the same page of how bylaw 2 works, because it's kind of a confusing motion. If this motion passes, as council, we do kind of have joint authority over bylaw 2 of itself with the board, correct?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions or points of debate at this time? Okay, if there are none, please cast your votes. Okay, this motion also passes unanimously. I think our final motion to vote on for the day is to renew the exec reporting policy. Am I correct? Are there questions on this? I can read it out again. Whereas the executive reporting policy is up for review by council, and whereas the policy has facilitated smooth and regular executive reporting over the years, and whereas no significant issues have been found with the present policy, be it resolved that council renew the executive reporting policy for another 3-year period with no amendments to the present policy. Questions on this?
Are there any points of a debate or amendments to be made? Okay, if there are none, we're calling to question. For whatever reason, Echo 360 just does not have this question, so we're gonna do placard vote. Those in favor of motion 5, please raise your placard. Keep them, yeah, perfect. Lower? Lower? Those against? And those abstaining? Okay, this motion also passes unanimously. Okay, as we voted on the housing motion in the last meeting, we can breeze by that. Don't think we have any presentations or points of discussion or for information item. So is there any new business at this time? Okay, if there is none, I'll take a motion for termination. Counselor Kermack, seconded by
Motion to
Counselor
adjourn.
Goddess. Unless there's any objections, this meeting is terminated. Have a good night.